Hi everybody, it's Harvard lawyer Lee. Today I want to talk about the very surprising acquittal of Danielle Redlick, who was accused of murdering her stepfather turned husband. Most experts believed that the evidence against her was overwhelming, but last week a Florida jury acquitted her of second-degree murder and of manslaughter. The jury did find her guilty of tampering with evidence. So let's talk about what happened. Just as a reminder, I'm an attorney, but I am not representing anyone in this video or connected to the Redlick case. Danielle Redlick, age 46, was a multimedia communication specialist and married to Michael Redlick, who was 21 years older than she was, and her former stepfather. The couple had been married 17 years and they had 2 children. At trial, Danielle Redlick admitted that she plunged a knife into her husband's shoulder or armpit. By the time of trial, she had already spent more than 3 years in prison. So I want to talk about, let's start with how Danielle came to marry her stepfather. Now, Michael Redlick, first a lawyer for 14 years, moved into a high-powered career in the sports industry. At the time of his death, Michael and Danielle lived in Florida, and Michael was the director of External Affairs and Partnership Relations for the Business Management program at the University of Central Florida. Danielle met her future husband, Michael, when he was dating her mother. Danielle's mother and Michael dated for 2 years and then married, according to testimony, primarily in order to get Danielle's mom better health care coverage because she had stage 4 breast cancer. Danielle's mother passed away 6 months after she married Michael. Danielle was 22 or 23 about that time. Now, Danielle had 2 siblings who were significantly younger than she was. One of them, they had both been living with Michael and with her mother. The brother went to live with his father, but the sister was still living with Michael. So Michael invited Danielle to come live with him and with the sister, and Danielle helped care for her younger sister. And she said Michael was very supportive of her career. And after a couple of years, the relationship turned romantic. Danielle said she wasn't entirely comfortable with that, and she didn't tell her family that the two were dating. When the sister ultimately found out, Danielle says she took it very hard. But nonetheless, Danielle and Michael married in 2004, and Danielle's stepdad officially became her husband. Now, their relationship lasted 17 years until the time of his death. They had 2 kids at that time, ages 15 and 11 by then. The marriage, though, had become rocky when Michael Redlick had an affair in 2016. Danielle filed for divorce, Michael moved out, and she says that Michael weaponized the divorce proceedings by threatening to take the house away. 2 months after she filed for divorce, the case was dismissed. But the next 3 years were, in a large sense, rocky from the way she described it. Danielle testified that Michael drank alcohol and took supplements and took testosterone for erectile dysfunction. As a result, he had a lot of aggression, she said, and sometimes physically harmed her while they were intimate. In 2019, Danielle herself began talking to other men and using a dating app called meetmindful.com. And then they hit their final fights in January of 2019. So on January 10th, 2019, Michael found a text message from another man to Danielle, and the couple had a fight while their kids were at home. Michael drank a great deal around that fight, and their teenage daughter, Jaden, had to get in between them and testified she had to take Michael's liquor bottle away and throw it in the dumpster outside. She said she had never seen her dad that upset before. So Danielle left the house that night and stayed in a different location and then texted with her 12-year-old son to see whether she could get back in without waking up Michael. The fight continued into the next day, January 11th. At some point in the fight, Michael took Danielle's phone, and in response, she egged his car. After the two went to their son's flag football game on January 12th, both kids were out with friends. The couple returned home and the fight kept going. This time, of course, the kids weren't at home. Michael was drinking, and the medical examiner would later find that his blood alcohol was 0.09, which is above the legal limit for operating a car. Danielle says that she was in the kitchen eating a quarter pounder from McDonald's when Michael took it from her, took a bite, and spit it in her face. She described him grabbing her arms. She says she tripped, and then he hauled her up from the floor by her hair and pushed her head down onto the counter and choked and smothered her. She said she was afraid because she couldn't breathe. Danielle says she grabbed a knife from the drawer next to her and stabbed Michael in the shoulder or underarm area. She then ran to the bathroom to hide. Michael followed her to the bathroom, and she heard him outside the bathroom door moaning and muttering. A medical examiner testified that Michael died of a stab wound between the ribs that hit a major vein just under the armpit and caused him to bleed out. The medical examiner estimated that Michael Redlick would have had about 15 minutes when he could have walked around before he passed out. After it became quiet at some point, Danielle came out and found Michael on the floor in the living room. She testified that she attempted CPR until she was exhausted and collapsed next to him. Danielle did not call 911 to get help for Michael until the next morning, 11 hours later. She says she went to sleep and woke up the next morning. The prosecution says she also was very busy during that time. They said she did all of these things during that time frame. First of all, she began cleaning the blood. Police say they found blood-soaked towels, mops soaked in blood, a 5-gallon bucket with pinkish water. Blood was also found in the bathroom. The state said Danielle even lifted Michael's arm up to mop underneath it and cleaned around his body. She also removed his bloody shirt to wash it. During that time, also, Danielle made 2 misdialed attempts to call 911. Neither went through. She then researched how to slit her wrists and actually attempted it. She also researched mental health facilities. The police claimed she spent 2 hours on a dating app while her husband lay dead, but the claim was hotly disputed by Danielle's side. The owner of MeetMindful.com, the site that Danielle used for dating, came and testified that Danielle Redlick did not send or receive any text messages for several days before Michael died. She did use a false name on the dating app and listed that she was separated, but the defense showed she had not sent any messages since January 1, and this was by now January 12, and had not received any since January 8. The state argued that she had searched profiles. Danielle also, according to the state, deleted 8 text messages that could not be recovered. And then, finally, 11 hours later, Danielle called 911. The state argued that she only called when she needed help because she had slit her wrists, never for Michael. Now, one thing that really hurt Danielle's case was that she told multiple stories about what happened that night. First, she told 2 different 911 dispatchers that Michael might have had a heart attack. She testified that she really did think that because he had had trouble before and she couldn't figure out how getting stabbed in the shoulder could cause him to die. She then suggested that during their argument, Michael took the knife from her and stabbed himself in the shoulder. She also told a mental health technician that. But finally, at trial, Danielle Redlick straight up admitted that she had stabbed Michael Redlick. She also admitted she had not told investigators the truth. So the defense used several things to counter what the prosecution was arguing. First, and most importantly, they argued that what Danielle did was self-defense, pointing out that she only stabbed once and there was only 1 stab wound on Michael. Now, under Florida law, the use of deadly force is justifiable if it's reasonably believed that the force is necessary to prevent imminent harm or great bodily harm to herself, to Danielle. And the defense also argued she had the right under Florida law to stand her ground. She had no duty to retreat, even though she in fact did go to the bathroom. So they asked the question of the jury, has the state convinced you beyond a reasonable doubt that Miss Redlick stabbed her husband out of ill will, hatred, malice, or evil intent. So the state's case is that she stabbed him, they said, because apparently divorce is hard, but murder is easy. It was well done on a line. The defense also went straight to something that was obviously going to bother the jury. They said that as his former stepdaughter, he was very controlling. Michael was very controlling with Danielle and treated her more like a possession. The defense also told the jury, you don't have to believe the prosecutor. You should ask yourself, does she seem to be lying? And for the most part, legal experts believe she did very, very well on the stand. And therefore, apparently, the jury was not convinced that she was lying and believed she may have been telling the truth. The defense also argued that there was really no reason for Danielle to call 911 because there was no evidence that Michael was alive when she came out of the bathroom. Although she did CPR because she was hoping he was alive, thought maybe he was alive, at no point did he ever move or seem to be breathing. The defense also noted that Danielle never did something like search for how to dispose of a body. And even though there was a lake right across the street, she made no attempt to try to dispose of the body. A juror spoke to WESH coming out of the trial and said that the state had left just too much room for reasonable doubt. That when you have a history of abuse and so many other factors, and you can't say 100% because this is somebody's life that is being determined, then we can only do the best we can. And that was his explanation for why it was that the jury found her not guilty of either second-degree murder or manslaughter. What the juror said was in keeping with a jailhouse call that Danielle made and that the state played as evidence in the case. In the call, Danielle told her sister, "You don't murder someone in his armpit," meaning who would ever guess that someone would die from being hit in the armpit with a knife? Ironically, the state admitted that point. Here's what they said. They said, she was surprised that Michael died. It's not entirely unreasonable that if you stab someone in the shoulder, you don't think they are going to die. And the state probably agrees with that. But then the state went on to argue that they didn't have to prove she intended to kill him. After all, she was using deadly force. At this point, Danielle Redlick has been released on bond after serving 3+ years. She will now be sentenced in August for the one count for which she was convicted, tampering with evidence. But she was acquitted on the two main things that she was charged with, the second-degree murder and manslaughter. I'm going to be doing another video on comparing why the jury reacted positively to Danielle Redlick and so negatively to Amber Heard. So be sure not just to subscribe, which I would really appreciate, but please also hit the notification button because you're going to want to know when that video comes out. I'll see you in the next video.